What's for supper? Food. I remember hating that question when my kids were little. Now, gosh, I'd give anything to hear that question again and feed them differently and feed them better. Because I fed them Hamburger Helper a lot. And today I want to tell you about three meals that are just about as easy to make as Hamburger Helper, but they're made from your good home cooking. They're kid friendly, they're keto friendly, they're low carb, high protein, high healthy fat. And they can be on the table in 30 minutes or less. I want to tell you, before we go to the recipes, however, that ground beef is perhaps the perfect meat. What's not to love? It's affordable. Even with today's prices, you can pay a little more for the grass-fed kind, or if you're on a budget, you can buy it in bulk from like the wholesale stores, right? There's a price point for every budget. It's kid friendly. What kid ever turned up his nose at a taco? None. It's versatile and it is nutritious. You cannot beat ground beef for protein and high healthy fat to keep you full and energized. For decades, we have been told to fear fat and to reduce our intake of red meat. Lies and damned lies. Protein is the building block for your muscles, bones, skin, everything. And those natural fats in ground beef, they are not the enemy. They keep your hormones balanced, your brain sharp, and your hunger under control. Dr. Georgia Ede has made a study of this topic. According to Dr. Ede, and I quote, there is no evidence that meat, saturated fat, or cholesterol are harmful to human health. In fact, there is plenty of evidence that meat, saturated fat, and cholesterol are vital to health. On a personal note, since I've been restricting carbs and eating more meat, my cognitive function has improved. Coincidence? Maybe, but probably not. So let's get right to the dinner ideas. Number one, low-carb-enough chili. Now, the secret to low-carb chili is to limiting your beans. I use about half a 15-ounce can of black beans per pound of ground meat. You also have to be a little careful with your tomato paste. I'll use about half a can of tomato paste for that same amount of chili. If you do that, you are going to end up with under 25 grams of carbs rather, per serving. You'll end up with 30 or more grams of protein per serving. So that's exactly what you want. And how do you make it? It's so simple. You brown the beef. While the beef is browning, chop some onion, some tomato. You throw that into the pan after the beef is browned, and you saute it right in the rendered lard. No, I guess that would be tallow. When your onion is translucent, take out any excess beef fat, throw in some broth or water and seasonings, also the tomato paste, and simmer. Top with shredded cheese or sour cream. It is satisfying. It is delicious. If you are missing an extra vegetable, if you want to bulk it out a little bit, go ahead and put it over some riced cauliflower. I never do that though because I'm very happy with a bowl of meat. Speaking of bowl of meat, let's go next. Let's go next to tacos. Now, you can make a taco salad, right? And if you have a taco salad, that's the taco meat and the lettuce and the tomato and the cheese and maybe the sour cream if you want it, a little lime. And where are the carbs? They're not there. The carbs are in your crunchy corn shell and in your soft flour tortilla. But you can have a nice crunchy shell without the carbs simply by making them yourself. Now stop, it's simpler than you think. You just need a quarter cup measure of shredded Mexican cheese, that's what I prefer, on a piece of parchment paper. So I'll take a baking sheet, lay it down a piece of parchment paper, and put on 3 scoops, quarter cup scoops of shredded cheese. Spread them out into lacy ovals, put them in the oven at like 375 and bake until browned. When they're browned, quickly use the parchment paper. You can't touch the sheet, but you can touch the parchment. Pull up the side so that you get that nice curved shell. And then I tuck it between the wall and a couple of glasses to let it cool. If you're making lots of shells, then you'll use multiple baking sheets, but stagger the baking so you have time to do that little parchment paper trick between batches. And that's it. Tacos, high protein, high healthy fat, negligible carbs. And for seasoning, You can make your own seasoning, or I use the McCormick's Original. It is not perfect. There is some cornstarch in there. I can live with a little cornstarch spread across multiple servings. But if you want perfect, just use your own seasonings. But it's just so easy. Brown the beef, add in some water and the seasoning and simmer, and then top with chopped onion, tomato, lettuce, cheese, sour cream. So good. All right, last, meatballs. Now, the meatballs might take a little longer to make if you're making for a crowd. So, or maybe you can get it done in under 30 minutes if you have a helper to make those meatballs with you. The secret to lowering the carbs in meatballs is you just throw away the breadcrumbs and instead use crushed pork rinds or almond flour. I usually use almond flour, about a quarter cup for a pound of ground beef. I'll also throw in an egg, some seasoning, and some shredded cheese. It's so good. Now, what do you serve it with, right? We're used to serving it over noodles or ziti or something. No, you can serve it over zoodles if you want. For me, why bother? I will sometimes when the zucchini is fresh. I'll just saute zucchini moons and serve it over that. But my mister says why just give me the meatballs and the sauce and he's happy. You will have carbs in a red sauce. Now you can buy the jar sauce. It's inexpensive. The carbs really aren't that high. But there will be added sugar, and in some there might be some additional additives, preservatives, a couple I've seen seed oil, and so I'll make my own, starting with half a can of tomato paste, thin it out with broth and water. What else is in there? Oh, I will always throw in some sauteed onion. I'll start with the sauteed onion, sauteed garlic, then throw in the tomato paste and the broth or water. And is it going to stand up to any Italians? Gravy? No, no. I'm an Irish girl, okay, but it's good enough for my French Canadian husband, all right, and it might be good enough for your kids. If you don't want any carbs, skip the red sauce and instead do a cheese sauce, which is just half and half heavy cream and shredded cheese. I do a mixture of parm and mozzarella. You warm the heavy cream in a saucepan, and when it just begins to simmer, dump in the shredded cheese, stir till it's melted through. For that one, I'll cook those meatballs till they're a little crispy. I just bake them in the oven on parchment paper, and then top them with the cheese sauce. No carbs in there. Well, there'll be some in the almond flour. Low carb, high protein, high healthy fat. So listen, if any of these sound good to you, I encourage you to try. I encourage you to share with a friend or family member who might need some meal ideas. I thank you for sharing your time with me today. Let's stay strong, wise, kind, and good by choosing good food for good health. YouTube thinks you'll like this video next.